Hey, this is Kevin Pollak, and you're listening to WithoutYourHead.com. But I guess you knew that, didn't you? Unless, of course, you lost your head.
All right, we're here at WithoutYourHead.com. We have a very special guest with us this evening. We have Lance Henriksen. How you doing today?
Hi, guys. I'm really happy to be here.
Huh. Now, you have a book out, Not Bad for a Human. It's a great title. Great line from one of your famous movies. And you can get...
I asked Jim Cameron for that title, by the way, and he said he'd be honored. Please use it.
Oh,
That's
yeah?
the last line to say in Aliens.
Mm-hmm. And, well, we just spoiled Aliens for anyone who's not seen it. Spoiler.
Well, I don't know how many people have not seen it. I mean, that thing has been around a while.
Yeah, I just can't. But you can get a hardcover and you can get it signed at notbadforhuman.com. And if you just want the soft cover, which I don't know why you'd want that, but you can get that at Barnes & Noble or Amazon.com.
It's also on Kindle, Nook, and iPad. So I've really hit all the markets. But my favorite is going to a show, doing an appearance at a, horror convention or a science fiction convention and meeting people and talking about it. And it's been very, very, a lot of fun. It really has been.
Have you been been happy with what people have been saying about the book?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, we were praying it would resonate with people, not only that like these genre films or anything, but all kinds of people. In fact, a guy at a university is using it to teach a course on masculinity. I mean, come on, that came out of nowhere. It's like a kiss in the dark.
Yeah.
You couldn't ever plan anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of, that sounded like I really wagged my own tail.
I was just saying, that's got to be an ego boost, though, if someone's like, you're the pinnacle of manhood, basically.
But it's humbling as well, because we all wanted our dads to say that, I mean,
right.
You're a great man, but anyhow, it's all good.
Yeah. And I just want to mention, because you will be at Rock and Shock, and that's my hometown, my home state here in Massachusetts, Worcester, Massachusetts. We have the links right on the website. That's October 14th to the 16th. Yeah. And, early in the book, because you mentioned that, sometimes a letdown if you see a movie with, in the theater, because most people in the theater are just there to actually be entertained. I was just wondering if, when you're at, a convention like this, if the fans, they appreciate, what you do more.
They do. I mean, my favorite thing at conventions is the Q&A. In other words, they just drag us into with a lot of people that are interested, and suddenly you're talking about things that they want to talk about, and you try to answer them as honestly as you can. And I enjoy that part the most, I think, because it's, I think it takes it makes us more of a tribe as opposed to, that I'm an actor and, I get caught at a gas station because a guy recognizes my voice, and then suddenly he goes, "I know who you are," that kind of thing. They're all expecting it, so we can really talk. It's pretty cool. I like that.
One of the main themes throughout the whole book is you really get into the roles you play. You kind of you become them, on and off screen. And I'm just wondering, is that ever hard when the movie's over, or is it like a relief that the character?
No, it is hard because I'm sure that 50% of the movies that I do, I kind of like the other person's life a little bit more than my own. They're more educated, or they're much more versatile than I am, perhaps, or whatever, one of the higher points or something. And I go, well, I really like that. In fact, my wife said to me once, heart be still. She saw me in this outfit when I did Quick and the Dead, and she got all fluttered by it. I was all dressed in leather with embroidery all over me, and great boots, hats, and guns, and she was all excited. And that's the positive side. The negative side is you have to take all that off and go home.
Right. I was just going to ask, did you ever get to borrow it and bring it home maybe for
No, I get rid of all of it because I can't. I wear a pair of shoes that I used in the movie. I start acting like the guy again. It's like reminders of the work you did on something. So I don't have anything. I don't save anything from movies.
Yeah, just the memories.
It's a strategy, my strategy.
Mm-hmm.
When I go home, I make pottery.
Yeah, I read that in the book. That was really interesting.
Yeah, I need labor because I can't just live in my head. You know.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you on?
No, go ahead. I'll let you.
Well, I was just wondering if that was the reason, because you said like you have some rules on like different villains you won't play, like if they do certain things. Is that the reason, since you get so into the role?
Well, it's also I have children, and you know there's certain things that I won't go there, just for that reason. I mean, we still have to have a life, and I have an 11-year-old and a 25-year-old, and one of the things is that they are going to see all these movies eventually. I mean,
mm-hmm.
my 11-year-old has only seen a few of my films because some of them are pretty, they're bad guys, and I don't want her. Well, I can't control her. I'm sure she's getting close to teenage, and then she's going to push away from the table and do what she wants. But,
mm-hmm.
I just gotta. I don't want to contribute to certain things,
Mm-hmm.
nasty characters that are, I won't do them. Yeah, I've gotten scripts where I said, a guy actually called me once and said, I've got this great script. This is you. This is really you, Lance, and I'll send it over. And I read it. And the guy, he's an escaped convict that is raping and pillaging with his van all over the country. And I called him back and I said, don't ever call me again. This is not, that's not me.
Mm-hmm.
It's an insult. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Take your script and run.
Mm-hmm. You had a similar story there in the book, and I was actually telling John earlier that was my favorite line in the whole book, just because I thought it was so funny. But
there you go.
Yeah. Is there any characters that you played that you were happy just to to get rid of?
Well, yeah. When I did Stone Cold with Brian Bosworth, I played an outlaw biker. It was 1%ers, and I had spent 4 months working on it, and by the end of it, I never wanted to see another motorcycle. I mean, I drove my own bike through the movie, and I killed in the movie, I killed anybody that looked at me cross-eyed, and I ended up killing the governor. I always come up with some kind of line, and I said to him, you just reminded me of my father's last words, which were, "Don't, son, that gun's loaded." After a while, you just go, I don't want to. I took a couple months off after that because I was exhausted.
Mm-hmm. Beforehand, before we start recording this, you were telling us that about the artwork in the book, which the cover artwork is just great, and all the artwork inside. Can you just tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. Sienkiewicz did that cover, and he's so talented that he did it like in maybe 5 minutes. He's just a great artist, and we wanted not to use publicity shots from movies because it would make it more available to people if the drawings were in the book, so that's still imagination as opposed to a frozen frame from a movie that has more ego in it, in a sense. And so we were grateful for that, and there were 5 or 6 of them, and they all decided on their own film that they wanted to draw. We never told them who or what, and they all picked different movies, and I loved their work. They were all really good.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Were you surprised by any of their choices? Like, did you think certain people would pick different certain films?
I was completely surprised, completely taken by surprise, because they're all so talented. I mean, you have Mike Mignola and Tim Bradstreet, and all these guys are at the top of the crowd. Eric Powell, and they're all just brilliant artists. I mean, they can do just about anything. Sienkiewicz was at the last convention I was at. He was across the street with Chicago Comic-Con. He came back over, and we had dinner that night. And when you have dinner with these guys individually, and you start talking about their philosophy and your philosophy, and what a night that was. That was just amazing.
Yeah.
That's my biggest thing with my industry, is that the people I meet and the people I get involved with, they change your life. They really do.
Yeah, I mean, you worked with several people, more than once. Is Is it ever weird to, if you're working with somebody in totally different roles and you work with them again, like Bill Paxton, and you're playing completely different roles?
No, because it's not odd in any way. It's really, the trust level is there. You don't have to construct that anymore, because the first time you did it. And so the second time or the third time, I worked with Bill more than twice. But you just go further. It's really wonderful. That's I think kind of the best part. That's why I call it a tribe. Where even with what a lot of people call fans, which kind of sounds like fanatic. I don't call them fans. I call them tribe members. I mean, we're all part of the same adventure, really.
Yeah.
You were mentioning about going into a theater and you see a movie. Everyone has a different reaction depending on where they are and their experiences of living. The worst one I ever had was when I saw The Life of Caruso with Mario Lanza. And he's young, he sings, everybody in the town loves him, he meets a girl, he has a baby, he becomes super famous, and he's on the stage and his neck blows out, he dies. And that's all like in an hour and a half. And I thought, this is so appalling to me, that anyone's life could be told in an hour and a half, that I thought, well, if I ever become an actor, I really want to live 1,000 lifetimes to make up for that, the abyss of that kind of concept. So, anyway, I go off, man. Forgive me.
No, it's really interesting.
I'm standing on a crocodile right now. my big joke in my house is I bought some carved crocodiles. They're big, life size, and in Papua New Guinea, and if you want to talk uninterrupted, you stand on the crocodile and nobody can interrupt you. So that's my life.
He's up on the crocodile. We're gonna leave him alone today.
I'm on the crocodile. Sorry.
Yeah. Speaking of artwork, you mentioned the book that you did conceptual drawings for the Bishop character, and I was just wondering how different was that from what we saw on the screen? Very, very different. And the reason I did it, I had squirrels made for my eyes that had 2 pupils in each eye, and Jim didn't know about that. He didn't know about, what I'd hired someone to try to do conceptual drawings. And the reason was I was so nervous about what was coming. If you had Rutger Hauer and the guy in the first Alien, he was so great, Ian Holm, and I thought, how the hell am I going to compete with those performances? They were great. And suddenly I did all this stuff, and then I realized, wait a minute, don't compete. Don't do that. Don't go there. I had to find it. I had to find my own way of doing it and not worry about what had come before. And that was part of it, and then I never used any of it. I don't think I even showed Jim any of it. But we did use the squirrels once. We did a test scene where I put it in. And I thought that if Bishop got alerted, that he would have 2 pupils in each eye so he could see better. But Jim shot it, and then he said, "We're not using them, Lance. You look scarier than the alien." Get it? You talked that used when you played Bishop that you had a childlike awe of things. And was that in the script at all, or was that just purely something that?
No, that wasn't in the script. No, I just realized that was the source I had to use, because how do you play an android? I mean, what part of my life would be more like Bishop than any other? And I thought around the time I was 12, because adults had all the power, and I was, I could be extinguished easily by them. And when they treated me badly, I thought, I'm going to outlive them. So I guess I can forgive them. And so that was a kind of approach to the role, and it actually worked. But I kept it pretty much a secret. I think the things that are more the sharing stuff is when Jim called me and said, we're trying to figure out how to introduce Bishop, and he said, the knife thing that we used to do when we were kids, going between your fingers with a knife really fast, and I said, oh, that's great, I like that, and I went out and bought every kind of knife you can imagine, because knowing Jim, when he saw the knife, he would pick it, you know what I mean? So I had 7 or 8 of them. You know, everything from switchblades to throwing knives to all kinds of knives. And when I got to London, they opened my suitcase, and they almost arrested me because the IRA was active then, and they thought, what the hell are you doing with all these knives? Anyway, they let me into the country. They came down and got me.
Yeah.
And bailed me out of the situation. But
probably would have been a lot worse today, but yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah. I would. God, it would be, wouldn't it?
I was really shocked to read that you actually did that. That it was actually you doing the knife trick.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's a great story where Bill Paxton and I were celebrating with everybody else because the movie had wrapped. We were finished, and we were going to leave the next day to fly back to the States. And we were shooting in Pinewood in London, and so we went out and had quite a bit of that wonderful British beer. And I got a call in the middle of the night, and I thought I dreamt it. It was Jim calling me saying, we saw the sped up footage, and it doesn't look any good, and we're going to have to redo it all. And so, and then in the morning, someone's banging on my door, and it wasn't a dream. Jim actually did call me, and we jumped in the car and went and redid it. And what you see on the film, on the hand when the blade is going between my fingers, is the actual speed. So we redid it. And,
that's really crazy.
Hangovers, I caught Bill on his pinky, and you should have heard him. You should have heard. Just
it's terrible
blood blister. I didn't even kill him. I just gave a blood blister.
You did that, and you talked about in the book you broke your hand for Piranha 2, and have you always been a guy that really wanted to do like your own stunts when possible? Oh yeah, I love it. When I've done about 5 westerns, and I learned to ride really well. Now I ride really well from all the experience. When we did Dead Man, I was on the same horse for almost 4 months. And so I love that. I mean, I'll take a fall. I'll jump off a building. I don't care. I mean, it's they're not gonna let you get hurt because they need you. No. Speaking of Piranha 2, because when later in the book when you're talking about some of your what you call them the alimony movies and how some of the directors you think maybe shouldn't really be directing movies, and then we kind of think back to the Piranha 2 stuff earlier in the book, where James Cameron yourself really are passionate about making this movie. Do you think even if like a young director's making a movie might not be the greatest movie, that they should have passion about it because that could lead to a lot bigger things? That's a very good question, but let me answer it this way. Jim Cameron was no different back in the days of Piranha 2 than he is doing Avatar. It's the same guy with the same desires and the same ability to focus and do hard work. I don't do low budget acting. If I'm in a movie, I'll do the very best work I can. Right. And so Jim Cameron didn't suddenly become Jim Cameron of Avatar or Titanic or Abyss or any of all those movies. He just was the same guy, but budget, and those restraints and who you're working with and who's your producers and who's going to support you. And so I've been very fortunate to be around, these kind of talents, and it does propel you because that was an era. I mean, there's certain movies that was an era. Like when you take, I worked with Stan Winston on Pumpkinhead, and Stan also did Terminator, and he did Aliens, and a lot depends on budget, and a lot depends on who's written it, and it's a miraculous thing. And people that are standing on a set anywhere, because it's an alimony film, or low budget, or a jet lag movie, or where you jet lag movies when you fly to Eastern Europe and you get off the plane, you go immediately to the set and start working. You don't even know your own name. You can't tie your shoes, let alone. But anyway, that those kind of things are the proof is in. You've got to do the best work you can, no matter what the circumstance. Is that why you think you and James Cameron hit it off so well? Oh, I'm sure. The work ethic. The great saying that a friend of mine had, and I love repeating it,
if you're having breakfast, bacon and eggs, the difference between involved and committed, the chicken was involved, but the pig was committed. And I commit to things. I'm not just involved.
Mm-hmm. You can definitely tell that by reading the book. And I was just when you do Millennium, and you get so committed to a movie, and then Millennium is so many episodes and 3 seasons. How hard is that to step away from that character?
Oh, it was really hard. I had to go to when the show was over. I had to go to Hawaii, lay on the beach, get a tattoo, try to get myself back again. Because believe me, I had so much respect for the Academy group and the people that actually do that kind of work that it got very deep into my psyche, and I really needed to let it go. Now we're pushing to get a film made, Millennium film.
Mm-hmm.
And so if that I could do, that because it's right at the end of the tunnel, you can pace yourself doing a film, whereas a series, there's no way to pace yourself. You could be on that for the rest of your life. Depending on its ratings, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Would you be was that something that you'd be excited to do, to revisit the Frank Black character?
Oh yeah, a lot of time has gone by. I if you remember, the end of Millennium was about the 2000. Will the computers kick over, or is everything going to shut down? I mean, that was the biggest, event, and nothing happened. And look what happened since 9/11. I mean, our political system, our lives have completely changed, and I think it would warrant a film. The other aspect of it is that, with CG having come out, I think of CG as something that you do like poetry in a limited way. You only use it to do things that you can't do any other way.
Right.
And that would be used as opposed to flashbacks when I grab a hold of a door handle. That implies a psychic, as opposed to what I thought of him as a chess player, and that he can think many, many, many moves ahead, and is able to string, very abstract, pieces of evidence together and come up with a story that would actually resonate, that would actually be very close to what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But that's through deduction rather than psychic ability.
Mm-hmm.
But you could show these things differently with CG than you could have ever done before. So it's pretty exciting.
Now, I know there's a site, back to frankblack.com, where it's just like so many fans, I don't even like the word fans, but want to see the character come back. Is when you see something like does that make you, just proud that you created this character?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It hasn't gone away. I mean, people are still very excited. I mean, all over the world. We have a tribe page, on Facebook, and
mm-hmm.
and people from Serbia want to see the movie, and people from all over the world. It's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. Well, what do you think?
Setting up. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go on. I'll ask after it.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, since you said people all around the world, want to see you, so I'm just wondering what do you think about the character, about the story that affects, people from all different cultures?
That's pretty wild. I went to Romania at one point to make a film, and as I came out of the customs,
mm-hmm.
there were a lot of people out there, and I thought, oh, shit, they're waiting for somebody. And I turned around to look to see if anybody was behind me, and there wasn't. And they were waiting for me, because apparently in Romania on a Friday night, they're rerunning them, and nobody is out in the streets. They're watching Millennium.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't believe it. I mean, it was completely out of the blue, that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to people about I tried to ask them why did it resonate with them? And it had to do with political things, that they saw a lone person that could take control of things that their government had no interest in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a different world, and it was very touching to me, because everything is about perspective. I mean, if I tried to talk to you about a Native American issue, would I be talking about it from a white perspective or a Native American perspective? Or, you know what I mean, other than Native American. I don't mean white. And it's all about perspective. How do you understand and how you conceive things? And it's always really interesting to me. Whose perspective is the story being told by, out of? So, and, here we go again.
That's really interesting because that wasn't the answer I was expecting. I was expecting more as a kind of universal theme. What is evil to you and dealing with evil, but maybe that's like you said from my perspective, and someone in another country sees it totally different. Sure.
Yeah, the perspectives from different parts of the world are very different. Yeah, it's really, really interesting. It's really.
And
it shows you one other thing. That we all have so many things in common. That perspective, if we continue to live in a world where it's us or them, we define ourselves by that phrase, us or them. We're never going to get to know each other. Really know each other. So anyway, that's one of my pet things.
That's interesting, John.
That's why I don't like politics.
Oh, I think we're on the same boat there. John, did you have a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a question from the message board, actually. Brains, he wants to know which one of the following actors live up to their tough guy persona, and that would be Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and Steven Seagal.
Oh, man. Oh, buddy. I've worked with all of them. I mean, he must have known that.
Yeah, he listed
tough
all
in what way? I mean, let's see, tough in what way? Now we got to define this. You're going to get me into real trouble.
I'm just going to say that. Yeah.
You really are. No, not you, but I mean that caller. I'm going to slip around that question by saying, when somebody asks me what is my favorite movie I've done, I always go the last one, and then get out of that question. The last movie I did is my favorite. No, I don't know what tough is. I mean, it depends on the situation, doesn't it? I mean, if they're fighting somebody, I don't know. But remember, these are all scripts. These are paper heroes.
Right.
Celluloid heroes. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that one. Good question.
Yeah. Thanks, Brains.
Thanks for asking it. Yeah. It's a great question. Thanks for asking it.
That's the answer, right?
Yeah, that's the answer.
There was some in your book, because you talked a little bit about Jeepers Creepers, and you wanted to do it if you could play both the cop and the creeper. It was your idea that they would be like the same person?
No, not at all. No, the cop part was I felt was fairly shallow, and to service the movie, I would have played the cop, and I would have played him with the right amount of the right amount of interest in what was going on. But the creeper, I felt, was just an incredible kind of epic mime role. I mean, it just did terrifying stuff. And he's a wonderful director, Victor Salva. I mean, I've done Powder with him. And then sometimes the only roles I won't play anymore, when a role of a pastor or a preacher or anything having to do with religion like that, unless it was, I guess, a Buddhist, I won't play them. I just won't, because they always end up being these. We all know where that's going to go in the movie.
So that's like kind of an easy target.
A very easy target on every level, because he's stuck with the the political nature of religion. My feeling about all of it is that people that have religion, this is just one part of it. I mean, this is just my thing, and that they are afraid to go to hell, and the people that have spiritual have already been there. Anyway, you didn't want that one.
No,
you cut that one out.
That was a good answer. I liked it.
Yeah.
I would say that a lot of times, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but when I read different people's books, sometimes in the beginning when they're a kid or something, I was like, oh man, I hope I get to, when they're doing stuff that I'm familiar with. But your book right away was very interesting about you growing up, and I never realized that you couldn't read, and you learned to read basically when you became an actor.
Yeah, I did. I had no necessity. I mean, I was already a painter, and I was surrounded by bright people in the arts, and I could wrap my head around concepts really easily, but no one forced me to read. I mean, I hated school, so I only went to a few years of grammar school, and that was it. I never went to high school, and I hated it. It was so deadening. It was dumbing down rather than anything else. And my home life was not that good, so I didn't have the kind of support that would allow you to sit in front of a book and read it. Forget it. Mm-hmm. Comic books were okay, but the rest was just not even possible. So, but unless there's a demand where you need it, why would you force yourself to do it? In my case, I'm not talking about anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of comic books, yeah, of course. Yeah.
I'm very literate now. I read all the time, but
it'd be pretty hard, I think.
But I'm taking care of myself now, so it's okay.
Yeah. Let's see. Speaking of comics, I read that you're going to be writing a script, or you are writing a script for a Dark Horse comic book.
Yes, we are. I'm really excited about that. I think it's going to be a 3-parter too. It's a great story. It really is. Joe Madre and I are writing it together. It's really good. We've become very good friends.
Yeah. Is there any information about it now, or are you going to wait till late?
Oh, wait. Oh, you're going to be surprised. You really will. Mm-hmm. Like, people ask me about Tron. I'm doing that Tron for Disney, and they ask me, well, what's it about? And I said, look, they're spending such a fortune to do this thing.
Right.
Let them present it the way they want. So let me present this the way I want. You're going to like it. You really will. If you like Dark Horse, they're good comics.
Yeah.
And this all happened, by the way. This all happened because of these artists doing Not Bad for a Human. Because I went to Comic-Con and wanted to visit my buddies and sell a few books and make connections, with those guys, because in fact, I gave out the Eisner Award. Mike Mignola won it.
Oh, man.
And and when I went up there, when I saw his name on the people that that were being nominated, I said, and my friend Mike Mignola, and then he won it, and I said, guys, I had nothing to do with this. I promise you, I didn't. But I had already said my best friend Mike Mignola. I blew it.
Yeah. Well, we do have
but I faked it.
We do have a third person that's normally with us, but he couldn't make it here today, and he actually draws all the caricatures for the guests on the website, so he'll be drawing your caricature, and it's usually kind of like based on like kind of an EC comic feel to it.
Beautiful. Oh, so you guys are into this. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna like our comic. I know you will.
Excellent.
I'm sure.
Now, what kind of comics did you read as a kid? Were you into any of the EC?
Tales from the Crypt.
Oh,
yeah. No, I was into Superman and stuff. The only one I liked was Aquaman, the guy with the dark hair, not the blonde guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he was cool. He was a good character. But the other ones I liked were all the Tales from the Crypt. And years later, I ended up on Tales from the Crypt show, and I did 2 of those. I did Cutting Cards and Yellow with Walter Hill with Cutting Cards and Zemeckis with Yellow.
Yeah.
That was cool. I loved it, man. I really loved it.
That's really one of my favorite episodes, the Cutting Cards one. I think it's great.
Did you like that?
Yeah.
Isn't that funny?
Uh-huh.
A couple of maniacs, man.
That's pretty wild, though.
I asked Walter, I said, Walter, I want to make this guy look like he's never lifted a weight, or he's unhealthy as you can get, skinny, like a rail. Mm-hmm. I said, can we put me in all in black and put the piping on my shirt like into my shoulder so I look like I have no shoulders? and I grew that dumbass mustache. But the thing is that I love playing that guy. We went from Russian roulette to It was funny. Really funny.
That's a great episode. What was Stan Winston like as a director?
Oh man, he was as matriarchal as you can get. I mean, he took everything personally and lavished the whole. When we were working, we just had such a good time together. You know, I loved Stan. He was a brilliant guy. Mm-hmm. Really, just a regular guy. Talented as hell.
Mm-hmm. That's really one of my favorite. Well, there's a lot of them, but that's one of my favorite movies you were in was Pumpkinhead.
Really?
Yeah, wow. I always really liked Pumpkinhead.
Yeah.
Ed Harley.
I love the relationship between me and my son. I remember when we got to an early scene, I realized that we didn't have much time to set that relationship so you could really see what they were like together. Mm-hmm. And I remember washing his hands, and I said, Stan, I remember my grandmother washing my hands, and she was like in her late 70s, almost 80, and her skin was thin as tissue paper. And I remember that how much she loved to wash my hands when I was a little 5-year-old, you know. And we used that in the film. I was trying to give him his heritage. I said, tell you about your grandmother, you know. Hmm. And it worked. It really worked because there was so little time in the story, mm-hmm. you know, to show that. So yeah, and Stan wrapped his mind around it immediately. He really got it.
Mm-hmm. It wouldn't have been nearly as powerful if there wasn't such a bond between you and your son in the movie.
Right, because revenge, you know, revenge is such a cold meal that you have to really know why, how that, what's the connection that makes the revenge so powerful. Mm-hmm. And not just a slaughter of your family.
Mm-hmm. And they couldn't make the kids too evil, or else it would have been too clear cut. You know?
Yeah, it would have been. And you know, he tried to walk the line with that. Mm-hmm. Good eye, man. I'm glad you liked that.
John, do you have another question from the message board?
Yeah, I had a question from Doiner. He wants to know, was it true that you're asked to do Terminator 2?
Yeah. Well, what happened was, you know, that story got a little distorted because of me. I mean, you know, Jim asked me to go in as the Terminator, and when he was going to meet the producers, and he said, I'll come there 15 minutes after you get there. So I did. I went in, scared the secretary, and kicked the door open, all kind of stuff like that. And then Jim arrived, and I left, and that story got out. But what they were saying was that I was going to be the Terminator. And the truth of it was, I didn't really think that at all. I was just doing a favor for Buddy. And then years later, Gail Ann Hurd, who produced it, and I were doing a commentary for the Blu-ray release of Terminator. And I said, Gail, you know, I've been fighting something for years. You know, the press keeps asking me, was I supposed to be a Terminator? And I'm going, no, of course not. And she said, yes, you were. Jim and I wanted you for the Terminator. And I went, you got to be kidding me. So I've been fighting this forever for no reason. I mean, whether I got it or not, it doesn't even matter. So that's how things get twisted. Mm. But I think Hemdale, after what I did coming in there, said anybody but him.
You know, working with Arnold Schwarzenegger so early, could you really tell that this guy had like a drive to become a big time star?
Well, I would have become governor, wouldn't I? I'm kidding. No, but I was happy. He did a great job. Mm-hmm. It was what it was. It was terrific. I liked that movie.
Yeah,
I get to do all my stuff with Paul Winfield. It was great, fun. I had a pearl-handled gun.
There's an interesting chapter in the book about that too. So everyone's going to get that. So there's an interesting chapter in the book about some of the different Terminator stories, and he thought maybe he'd come back in part 2 in a wheelchair, and this is really
yeah. Jim was saying that a really angry angry.
Well, we'll let everybody know it's notbadforhuman.com. You can get the hardcover book. and you can actually meet Lance Henriksen in person. You can meet me too, but I probably don't care about that. But it's October 14th to the 16th in Worcester, Mass. And it's rockandshock.com. We'll link right on the website. And I just want to ask you a last question here. If you could, revisit any of your characters, would it be Frank Black or would it be somebody else?
I think so. Yeah, I would like to do that.
Mm-hmm. I'd just like to see that.
I really would. I have something to prove.
Mm-hmm. Man,
what happened?
I'd like to see it.
We're working on it.
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate you coming on tonight.
Thank you, man. I appreciate the interest in the promotion of my book. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah. Maybe we'll have you back when the comic book comes out.
Good. All right. Yeah, let's do that.
All right.
Then you're going to wonder, who's your psychiatrist? That's what you'll say. Who is your psychiatrist, by the way?
Oh, now you have me really intrigued.
Do you pay them, or does he pay you?
Can we get one last thing from you? It'll only take a second.
Sure.
Let's give us like a liner for the site. Be like, this is Lance Henriksen, and you're listening to WithoutYourHead.com. And if you want to spice it up...
Let me tell you one last thing, since you just said that.
All right.
We did a comedy. We just finished shooting it. It's called Bring Me the Head of Lance Henriksen.
Really?
I'm serious. Tim Thomas is starring in it, and it's about ageism in the industry. And if you're after 40, you have less and less roles, and Tim keeps trying to get a job, and every time he goes in, my picture's up on the wall, and they've either offered it to me or I'm doing the movie. And he starts stalking me to find out, how does he do that? How does this happen?
That's pretty awesome.
It's very funny, man. It's all improvised, the whole show.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, I'll do your thing. Yeah,
all right,
give
cool.
it to me. What do you want me to say?
I was going to say, it's a good thing they got you for that movie. It would have been strange if someone else played the role, the Lance Henriksen.
That's right.
But, yeah, this
that was a shoe-in. They call that a shoe-in.
This is Gary J. Tunnicliffe, makeup effects artist, and you are listening to Without Your